Yeah.
And we have been for a long, long time. And so people have been saying this, not just me,
Yeah.
for a year or more. And I noticed now too on the Michael Adams interview is that so now they're including it's not enough to say the flock cameras are a problem. Now it's flock and ring. Okay, so all of the Ring doorbells,
Right. I don't understand that.
now
But
they're including that because
like you're now telling everybody who's coming to your house how long they're staying. Like,
they've had
I
this
mean,
for so much longer than we've ever even,
yeah,
they've been doing it. They don't need this. They can watch us from their
settlements.
satellites already. They can read our license plates. They know where we're going. And, I just think it's a total distraction.
Mm,
We should,
okay. I mean,
we
it's not
should
to say
be
that you, yeah.
maybe encouraging people who have been totally safe. And they say to us, yeah, have you heard about the flock cameras and how they're partnering with Ring and all of
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
And you
yeah,
say, and we can encourage them and say,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's horrible.
well, that's horrible. That's tyranny waiting to happen, and encourage them to want to know more and get mad. That's the main thing is that
Yeah.
we need to get mad. We need to turn our fear into righteous anger.
Mm,
I don't think they can actually harness that energy coming off of us. Righteous anger. That's
yeah.
why I
Yeah.
qualify that because that
Correct.
will be
A
coming
true, yeah.
from God. In other words, where do we get the strength and the courage to protect our loved ones or anyone, really? I bet any one of us three would hesitate to lay down our life for anyone who was being assaulted to the point of danger of being killed, right? We would try to save that person. We wouldn't be living in fear.
I would hope that I would, but you never know about yourself. You want to be,
I, I bet you would, or you wouldn't
well,
be open to
yeah.
all of this information. You'd be too scared. I think a lot of people hear things, maybe even the flock camera issue, and they get too scared and they shut off completely. And I think we've been conditioned that way
Well, I think
over
people feel,
some multiple generations, certainly in the last 100 years since
yeah,
TV.
have a
And
lot of
maybe
it.
starting with radio. I mean, they proved it even with
Right, right. War of the
radio,
Worlds.
War of the
Mm-hmm.
Worlds,
Yeah.
and people were absolutely terrified.
How do you know what is real and what is not in terms of like we now everybody it used to be you'd have this big huge box video camera that had to be carried on your shoulder,
Yeah,
and now we have these cell phones that like everybody has one, and you'd think there had a friend of a friend twice 6 times removed. They were in I think the Washington area, and it was an older gentleman, and he had dementia, and they thought everything was secure, and he left his house with no glasses and very little clothing, and they couldn't find him for 3 days. Eventually, he'd fallen and died, which is really tragic and sad, and I was very sorry, but I kind of sat there and was like, with all the Ring doorbells, with all the stuff, like, he literally walked through the neighborhood, and then at a certain point, they miss him, and they can't find him. How did he go missing for 3 solid days? It was just sort of bizarre to me
well,
that
one
they
explanation could be that yes, the algorithm knew, Big Brother knew, but can't disclose that it knows, or else we find out
yeah, I
their
don't know. I just it was
capabilities,
sort of
right?
weird.
Yeah,
It was sort of
so they
bizarre
have
to
to
me
let it go.
because it's like, is I mean, we all grew up in an era where those cameras weren't there. Look at kids today, and you think I did all that crazy stuff, but I don't get caught because it wasn't on video. And now you're like, this is gonna be kind of ugly for you kids.
They want us afraid too. At the same time, I'm sure that they want us afraid.
I have a question. Do
Yeah,
you think that AI is demons?
no,
Mm,
not in
okay.
and of itself. Would the demons use
Yeah.
AI?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Would they
Exactly.
get
I think the
into
whole
would
source
they
of
get
it,
into a robot,
yeah,
a humanoid,
shaped thing. I don't know.
that is being run with an internal AI and
Well,
connected to the master AI?
but
Would they
isn't
get? Yeah, I think so.
but isn't the whole point where a demon has no body? Like if you look at the example of Christ and that when the demoniac and they asked to be cast into the pigs. And what did the pigs do? But they run straight into water because desert arid places. And it's talked about where if you cast out a demon, it goes to arid places and then gathers its friends and says, I want to go back there. Isn't a demonic spirit, whether it's a Nephilim spirit or not, seeking flesh, seeking humanity, seeking to feel, touch, taste, smell. But then,
as opposed to a robot.
right.
Yeah.
But if you've got a screen and they can interact with a person, wouldn't that
Yeah.
be kind of a
So
threat?
that
I don't
might
know.
be the gateway, the robot or the AI, the
Yeah.
companion, as they call them now, maybe that's the gateway
Mm,
to get the human to trust. And yes, then that becomes their portal or their
right. Yeah, that they can jump
into the
into the
human, I
human
guess.
and makes an agreement with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure all of that can happen. These kind of technologies, right? It's training our young to value secrecy.
Over privacy.
Never even a talk about privacy. Privacy has become secrecy,
Secrecy.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in secret, if you ask your own child, have you read some of these stories? The parents, they tell the story leading up to the suicide that the AI told the kid to,
Yeah.
okay. So if you listen carefully, there is a phase where when the parents start to suspect something and they're asking the child questions,
They're lying.
the child is totally offended and sees their parent now as an enemy.
Right.
And then that's really what has now triggered. That's the trigger that the AI needed, is when the child sees the parent as
Does
an
the
enemy
enemy as opposed to
because
the
they are
protector.
trying to
Yeah.
uh, they're trying to break through into that secrecy.
Mm.
And the
Well,
child
and
calls it
it's the
privacy. AI is saying, "Oh, this is your private life."
well,
They have no right to be.
but and what we make agreements with and what we confess. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and sometimes she'll say, "Well, you're not going to die if you do," and you're language. Like, let's not speak
Yeah,
that as a 13-year-old. Sometimes there's things that are struggle, especially with a horse. She'll say, "Well, I can't do it," and I'll look at her and say, "Can't isn't a word we use. I'm struggling. I'm learning. I'm whatever. I'm frustrated. Frustration is fine." And it's this fear of failure of not being able to do something, and yet it took us years of mastery over measuring a second time and checking and whatnot to learn a trade or a craft. And that it's like you want it instantaneous. I want to be an influencer. I want to make a video, and then all of a sudden it will be this. And it's like, where's your substance? Where's your learning? Where's the background for this? And it is hindering them in the TikToking 30-second shorts. And yet we'll listen to things that are an
yes.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it's crazy because it's like long form. Oh, it's an hour and a
5 seconds.
half. Oh my gosh. What? I'm not listening to that. It's like, wait a
It's
minute.
as low as 3, as high as 8 is what the average person scrolling on TikTok is.
Is
I just
three
saw that.
seconds to 8 seconds?
So 5
Oh,
is the average. So if you're doing shorts, that's what it means, is a 5-second clip.
crazy.
That's a long time already
Right.
by today's standards for
Yeah.
our children,
Oh,
in 3 seconds. And so
tragedy.
there you go. And the algorithms, you think, well, the influencers are bad.
Right.
No, the algorithm, yes, they are
They are
bad, but
as
the
well. Yeah, yeah.
algorithms are now being designed,
Well,
programmed to find those influencers that are going to influence the youth. They need to influence the youth primarily because they need the youth to turn against their parents,
mm,
against the older generation, right? And boy, they have been doing that. I look over my life, like homeschool, church, and Christian life all the way, bonded as a family, knew other homeschooler Christian families. Oh, I did a gospel bluegrass band together, built a chess club together, which was really a ministry by their insistence. Why we're going to do this chess club, Dad, is that you keep saying it's a very ungodly environment.
so
Well,
we're gonna
we're
do
going,
it.
and
Yeah.
that's going to be our mission field. What can Dad say to that? So all of that, and still, because they were never kept in a bubble and had access to the technology as it came along. Not to say that I think they ever got addicted per se, but the influence is out there. And I've always thought the technology itself is probably not the biggest problem. The biggest problem for our children and for the youth is going to be the other youth that they're associating with. And most of the other kids that my kids associated with were not homeschooled. They were not.
Yeah.
They were,
Sure. The environment that you put the child in.
absolutely, even before the chess club. So because all of them, uh, they are being influenced through these
Well, are you
technologies
being
and
the
so forth, and the
influencer,
media.
or are you being influenced? And are
Well,
you being
you
influenced
teach them
by?
that, but when you're outnumbered, like 99 to 1, wherever you go,
Yeah.
because of the pervasiveness of the Hollywood and the public schools and so on, right? You are in an environment where even if someone in that environment, was seeking the Lord at 12 years old, and
Yeah.
they're actually going to be prone not to say anything about that and to just fit in.
Right. Sure.
So as children, so they're just not.
We have in our household, oftentimes my child is very concerned with, and not entirely wrongly so, but just a little bit, does this look good? Is this fit right? Whatever. And we're often going to the barn, and I'll look around and go, horse doesn't care what you look like. Yeah, okay, mom. But it doesn't. The horse doesn't care. It cares what you smell like. Really, honestly, do you smell like my human? Are you the horse is using its olfactory senses to? Oh, this is my human. Okay, we're good. Like, that's what's important. And again, I'm not saying you purposefully don't comb your hair or whatever, but at a certain point, I'm always like, I don't care because the horse doesn't care. So I mean, we do this. We want to fit in. And I would tell you that I don't often say, hey, let me tell you about the little season to everyone I know. I kind of like gauge. And especially if someone asks me a question, hint at, oh,
Well, that's a good segue back to the little season then, is that so my daughters got very excited. We were together, the three of us, when we saw the first Exploring Tartaria video, and where she went from just looking at the old world architecture into speculating this
could
could
this be?
be
Yeah.
that video and the next. We saw all those together and it clicked for us immediately.
Mhm.
My daughters were early 20s. They were just 20 and 22, 23. Now, this was exciting, but then within a day or two, they became very concerned with, well, who are we then
Mm.
today? Who are we alive? Who are the
Right.
generations
Are
alive
we the
today?
rest of the dead?
Are we the ones? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so immediately, what what seems to make sense, if we're not in the kingdom right now, if we're not with Jesus right now, where he went to, he took the saints,
Yeah.
he took the people that
What if we weren't born
converted.
yet?
Well, that's right. But in other words, who are we in the sense of who are we the descendants of?
Right.
And
Which
it does
generation? Yeah.
appear that we are the descendants of people who did not choose
See, I don't know
Jesus.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
we can
So
bring
what do
in
you
weird
say to
stuff.
those, and especially the
Wow.
young people who are looking at everything
Yeah.
up in chaos, it seems right now, and being fed, being conditioned
Right.
with the rest of
And
the world to be
yeah.
pessimistic and to be cynical?
I wouldn't have made personally, those are still open questions. For me, it's not as exclusive as we are, quote unquote, the rest of the dead. It says you go through the verses and it's still a question. And
Yeah.
I know that
So
my mother,
are we the descendants of the orphans? We know about the orphan trains. We know
yeah,
they were taking people,
yeah, I
the
don't,
adults, ostensibly their parents,
and
asylums,
to try it
what
right.
have you.
Yeah.
So now that's what I'm trying to convey to them, actually, is because that seems the most pragmatic, most at hand possible explanation, possibility,
Sure.
is that we are the descendants of those orphans.
Possible.
Right
Yeah.
now,
It's
as
a possibility.
children, and they've had their parents taken away from them.
Right.
As children, how does Jesus see them? The children are
Absolutely.
innocent, and that seems to have helped.
That in there. Sure.
Yeah, a little bit. But I'm going to say too is that all that excitement over this possibility, I think because of the culture, and none of us is immune to it completely. We all have to use phones, we think, right? Even though 15 years ago we got away, somehow we
Right.
managed.
Well, and when you're supposed
Uh,
to show up somewhere and the phone doesn't work, and then you're like standing there, you go, okay, I can't call. Look, if the phone's not going through, if their
most
battery's
people,
dead or something.
yeah,
Yeah, you
most
kind of, well, but you do, you go like, do I leave? Do I not leave? Do I pick this person? Like, how do you, because we used to have, hey, I'll meet you at the town square at noon on Saturday. And then it's like 12:30 and you're going, okay, well, Beth just didn't show up. I guess I'm leaving. And then I show up at 2 and I can't tell you that had a flat tire or whatever. Like but we all lived through
We
it.
lived through it.
Right?
I'm
It's
here
so
to I'm
crazy.
here to tell you about it. I mean, I made it through
Right?
and never thought
Yeah.
anything along the way like I'm being deprived or somehow
Right.
handicapped.
Well, and this is this whole thing where not knowing is okay, like not having all the information at hand. There was something I'm trying to think of. It was like how much cash you could get back at the grocery store. My husband like, well, no, Google says this. I was like, Google's not right, and he's like, well, I only need this much, so I'm going to go off. And he went, oh, of course, Google was wrong. It lies. Oh my gosh! And it was just the wrong information. No big deal. Okay, I chose not to go to the bank versus the grocery store to get my cash back. No big deal. But again, lived through an era where, oh my goodness, Beth just didn't show up at noon. It's okay. She had a flat tire. And then I tell you the tale the next Saturday that we're supposed to meet, or we see each other at church. And I say, hey, this is what happened, Bill.
We are looking at technology being used more for evil
Yeah.
than for good.
No, I definitely agree with that.
And that still is one of the most intriguing things about as I try to envision having lived in the millennial kingdom. Did we have all this? I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Wait a minute. So Philip is translated. I've always been fascinated with that.
Yeah.
He's told to go up to the chariot. He's told to talk to the eunuch. He's like, you understand what you're saying? And the eunuch's like, how can I? He's like, let me explain the scripture. He tells them all the truth, right? He says, there's water. I'm going to get baptized, right? He tells him, he's like all excited. He dumps the guy, comes up, and then all of a sudden, Philip's gone. That's actually not the moment. Like I've always thought of translation as getting rid of the boring parts. And yet this was the exciting part. The Ethiopian eunuch has just been baptized. He's new life in Christ. And then that's when Philip's like, if that happened in the Bible, then why couldn't that have happened during the millennial reign? And again,
Yeah, for sure.
is it
And even before the millennial reign started, Jesus told his disciples that they would be doing the
greater
same
things?
and greater things.